Oh, she takes a bath with a mermaid. 8 years old, you think that's just her best friend. But digging a little deeper. And she asked her, Mommy, is there coffee here? Because I smell coffee. And there's no coffee. And
Ooh.
normally as a parent, you just fob it off.
That's Dr. Jess Armine, a healthcare provider for over 50 years, EMT to ER nurse to chiropractor, who's built his entire career on one question. What happens when patients' tests come back normal and they're still sick? I'm Amy Hartshorn, and this is Green Living Now. In this conversation, Dr. Jess Armine walked me through that little girl's story and another case, a young woman having 27 seizures a month, that he says comes down to a mechanism that most doctors never look at, and neither story ended the way you'd expect. We also get into why your multivitamin might not be doing what you expect, and he basically gives away his entire protocol for feeding your cells and improving your gut and therefore your immune system, whether or not you've been formally diagnosed with anything. Before we get into it, be sure to grab my free guide, 10 words on your food labels that are lying to you. The link is in the description, or you can just go to greenlivingnow.com. It'll change the way you shop. Here's Dr. Jess Armine. Dr. Jess, you have an amazing background and so much information that we've just been chatting about before we even got on here. First, just for people to understand who you are, can you just do a little bit of your background?
Sure. I'll be very brief. I've been a healthcare provider in one form or another for 50 years. I started out in New York City as an EMT and became one of the first paramedics. I graduated College of Nursing. Simultaneously, I was an ROTC, so I got a commission in the military and was an emergency department nurse and also the head nurse of a coronary intensive care unit. I got discharged from active duty to the reserves and continued working as a registered nurse in emergency departments in an inner city hospital. I used to joke and say that's where the knife and gun club used to meet. So obviously in my youth, I liked trauma. I liked emergencies. I loved triage. Okay. It was like my thing. In the meantime, I was taking prerequisites for medical school. I met a lot of medical doctors who literally disliked what they did. And subsequently, I found out why. And of course, I met a lot of chiropractors who seemed to love what they did. So instead of medical school, I applied and got accepted to chiropractic school and graduated in 1986. And since then, I've been a practicing chiropractor. First few years, did standard chiropractic, but I developed an interest in alternative medicine, the wider aspects of it, okay, including neurotransmitter mood balancing. And so all that stuff fed left side of my brain. So all this knowledge, all these schools, all these training started being thrown in front of me, and I started taking advantage of it. Since then, I learned how to balance neurotransmitters, mood disorders. I learned how to balance the physiology of the body. I got the first certification in an art or subspecialty called neuroendoimmunology, which is a relationship between the nervous system, the endocrine or hormonal system, and the immune system, and how they interact with one another. I've been on the forefront of mitochondrial research and understanding how the mitochondria work, what makes it dysfunctional, and what happens when it becomes dysfunctional. How to balance what most people ignore is the cell membrane integrity. As I was starting to treat more and more complex cases that were not getting success elsewhere, I began to see a pattern of things that were not treated or were not considered important. And that's where I started out in utilizing that knowledge and realizing that is what took people from non-responsive, regardless of either the tests are negative and it doesn't look like you're sick and it's in your head, or they've had chronic illnesses that seem to continue or get worse despite treatment. I started utilizing that knowledge and developed, it's not specialized techniques, it was a concept, okay, that I freely shared with everybody, all my colleagues and so forth, although they laughed at me because it was too simple. If it didn't have a sexy, complex name, it was too simple. Okay, it's like that.
Let me just back you up for a second, if you wouldn't mind. So the things that you started noticing, can you be a little more specific about what those things were?
The basic concept in traditional medicine, by the way, understand, I am not against traditional medicine. I'm against the injudicious use of anything, the unthinking use of anything, the following of protocols without consideration. Okay. That is not one of the biggest enemies. I found out that in traditional medicine, they simply looked at the body and said, if I take care of the root causes, the body will take care of itself. But in a chronic condition, that didn't seem to work. So in essence, when you took care of, let's say, Lyme disease or anything else you can think of, you didn't necessarily get rid of all the symptoms. And then you start assigning it to other reasons because you're looking from the symptoms instead of the dysfunction in the cell outward. When I started looking at this, I said, hey, it's got to be at the cellular level because you put cells together, you get tissues. Put tissues together, you get organs. Put organs together, you get a body. So where's the glitch? People weren't looking at or partially treating the foundation of the body, which is cellular function, biochemical reactions, so forth and so on. And I call it foundational treatment or fundamental treatment. You'll now see it in the literature as terrain treatment or bioterrain treatment. Treat the terrain and people get better. Guess what? I invented it. But there's no Dr. Jess or Dr. Armine method out there. I would just give out this information. Just remember, everybody's an individual, hence medicine, okay? When you look at root causes, what's feeding the fire, okay? That's one thing you have to look at. Two, you have to heal what those root causes did. An example that's more direct would be a little girl that at the very beginning of my career. She was 8 years old, and her mother called me to inquire she needed Irwin glasses. Irwin syndrome is when the light gets into the eyes and has too much stimulation and causes ADD, ADHD, and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that.
Irwin
Okay.
syndrome, Irwin syndrome is a creation of glasses that have been individually tested different tints. And you send your glasses off to a company that puts the tints on, and then it cuts out very specific frequencies. And even though you can see very well, lessens the amount of stimulation.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I never just say yes, go. I ask questions. I always ask questions.
Me too.
Good, I'm glad. And I asked the mother, and I said, listen, ask your little girl these questions without scaring her. Call me back tomorrow. Mom called me back in a panic because this little one, by her name was Alyssa, I have permission to use her name.
Okay.
I had visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, and olfactory hallucinations.
So wait, what were the questions that you had the mom ask her?
I told her how to ask about, are you seeing things that aren't?
Oh, okay. So you knew she potentially was having these hallucinations.
Yeah. Oh, she takes a bath with a mermaid. 8 years old, you think that's just her best friend. Right? But digging a little deeper. And she asked her about, Mommy, is there coffee here? Because I smell coffee. And there's no coffee. Ooh. And normally as a parent, you just fob it off. So she kind of gathered that information in her head without scaring the little one. Came back to me and I talked a little bit about it. And she always had a bad gut. A lot of stuff she ate hurt. So I said, I'll tell you what, you have to get a medical workup done. You have to. Yeah. Because first of all, olfactory hallucinations are a brain tumor unless proof otherwise.
Can I just interrupt with that one? Because my cousin had a brain tumor. My uncle was a cardiologist and he felt so guilty that he didn't catch this sooner. But my cousin apparently in the car told his father, I smell roses, Dad. So that tracks. Mm-hmm. Okay, so continue.
So it's something you say, listen, you always check for the bad stuff first. Okay. Even if you're an alternative medicine type, get off your soapbox. Care more about the patient. Even if you end up losing the patient to some other treatment, do your job because you have to care more about the patient than you. So I said, if all this stuff comes up negative, you give me a call. About 3 weeks later, she comes back and she gives me the whole list of everything that was simply negative. And they were saying, think about it. What are they going to do? They're going to put her on antipsychotics at 8 years of age.
So wait, did they ever check for a brain tumor?
Oh, yeah, they took an MRI.
Oh, okay. And that came back negative.
Negative, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I always tell my patients or parents, I say, this is what you say to the doctor. These are the phrases that will trigger, because I know the algorithms. Okay? Hey, listen, she's smelling stuff that ain't there.
Yeah.
She's hearing stuff that ain't there.
Yeah.
She's seeing stuff that I thought was just playing around, but I put it together. And she's got a bad gut that we've been talking about, but I'm really concerned now. Most doctors sit there and go, okay, let's check this out. All we have to do is say things that make them think about what they're supposed to be thinking about. Yeah. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Doctors really do care. They're very constrained. We talked about that.
Yes.
Okay? So what I did was I took a very long history, which for an 8-year-old wasn't that long.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was something happening. So I did a bunch of testing and I found out that she had chronic Lyme disease. She had antipsychotics.
Wow.
and HHV6, which is, there are 10 herpes viruses, by the way. That's
Okay.
one of the ones that hang out in the brain.
Oh, geez, I didn't know that. Okay.
So
And she was only 8 and she had all of this stuff. Wow.
yeah, and she lived in Texas in a rural community.
Oh,
She also had leaky gut syndrome, which was given with the summit. So I started working with an integrative pediatrician, and we worked together. This was early in my career, by the way.
Mm.
And at the time, we worked on her gut for about 2-3 months. That got a lot better. And then I would have done it a little different order right now, but decided we're going to start treating these entities. Now, the pediatrician wanted to put a PICC line in her, that IV, and start doing rotating antibiotics.
oh, for the
I didn't
Lyme.
like that, for the Lyme and everything else. I said,
And that's going to wreak havoc on her gut, right?
yeah, and everything else. But I said, I know of something else to use that is a broad biocidal agent that should get rid of all of this. Okay. And that was chlorine dioxide solution. It
Oh.
used to be called MMS.
Okay.
That smells a little bit like bleach, and that's why governments put it down. You're giving your child bleach, really, but it works. So I presented to the parents, and I present everything. I present the pros and cons of everything, because my job is not to say, follow me. My job is to give you the information so you can make an informed decision. They talked about it, got back to me next day and said, listen, we'll do your method. If it doesn't work out, go to the IVs. It's perfectly logical. I did one of the protocols that I know. 6 weeks, all the symptoms were gone. Every single one of them. And then about 6 weeks after that, I retested, and everything was gone except a little bit of the HHV6. She was 8. She's now 21, graduating from college, is going to go to medical school.
Wow.
She went through all of her teenage, and the parents kept in touch with me over time. And I got pictures of her as she grew. I got her, noticed that she graduated high school, and I cried for a week. Okay.
Wow.
Then I get this picture of this beautiful young woman who's living a life, finishing college, progressing in her life. I get that notice about that. And again, I cried for a week. They constantly keep in touch with me. And she's been my favorite person in the whole wide world.
Oh, that's such a great story.
And she's doing very well. Not everybody resolves that well because of various factors like exposure, but she was one of those cases and did very well with the same concepts I'm talking about. I had a young lady who had 25 seizures a month.
25 seizures a month. Oh, good
And
Lord.
you can imagine she was like this.
Yeah.
Chelsea is her name. And again, I have permission to use it. I use her as a case study. Chelsea, a story of hope. Everything else she had done over the years, she had all kinds of anticonvulsants and so forth. And I looked at her from that lens and said, you know something? That's like electrocution 25 times a month. How about I fix those cells?
Yeah.
So I started fixing, giving the body what it needs to work. There weren't any root causes anymore.
Really?
I checked myself, sure. Because once you get rid of the root causes, here's the reason. Sometimes the damage is still there, but the damage is not permanent.
Because the body's always healing. So you're saying that she had something going on in the cellular realm that we're able to fix.
What happens in seizures, think about a nerve and the electrolytes on the other side.
Okay.
When the impulse comes through, this electrolytes simply change places. That's called depolarization wave. We have a tendency in the heart and in the brain that there's a leakage that happens, but we compensate. And we don't have these independent signals. Our nerve coverings was so thin that it was leaking very quickly and would create its own impulses and a seizure instead of a coordinated nerve wave. And I said to myself, this is probably what's going on, because everything else, Sherlock Holmes, which is the way I follow things.
Yeah.
So if I rule out the impossible, whatever's left, however probable, must be the truth. Now, it took a year. Yes, I started out being very involved, and then I would check in with him on regular intervals. But over that year, I remember Chelsea, she'd be sitting there like this with her service dog, who I loved. Okay, this dog was great. And I remember one day, because she was very beautiful, I said, Chelsea, you got great eyes. And she went like this. It was getting through. Okay. These parents were phenomenal. Mom would take videos of her. And I have videos of her having a seizure. And then she's talking. Actually, 11 months later, she's sitting there shaking, playing cards with her grandmother. She's her grandmother, the card game. And coherently. A few months after that, I have a video of her making applesauce with her mother. It took a long time to rebuild those cells.
And what were you doing to rebuild them?
Literally, this is why so many people think that this is too simple to be true.
Okay.
If you're not giving the cells what they need to work, how do you expect them to work? If you're not giving them the vitamins and minerals into the cells, because what do? All your biochemical processes run by enzymes. Your genes create enzymes, and those enzymes need vitamins and minerals to work. If they don't have it, they'll work very slowly. And if you already have a pathway that's compromised, but once you can't do what you're supposed to do, what enzymes do is take one thing, turn it into another, turn it into another. So until you get to what the body needs, or in case of a toxin, turns it from a fat-soluble toxin, which is normal, to something called a free radical, which we don't want hanging around, and then turns it into a water-soluble molecule that can get excreted. Our bodies do that, okay? If the cells themselves don't have a patent cell membrane, what's supposed to be in will go out, what's supposed to go out goes in. Remember, the cell membrane is not just a wall. That's where all your receptors are. That's where a whole mess of things are. And guess what? You're not going to have the work you can do. Then you have to think about the inflammation. What could be causing that? Safe bet is leaky gut syndrome.
So when you say the nutrients have to get into the cells, how does that get accomplished? Is it a specific type of nutrient that makes it more available to the cells?
Good question. A lot of doctors say take multivitamin. Great. Perfect. Except, I didn't tell you what kind. Let me tell everybody why that's true.
Okay.
Okay. Because, first off, you should know that supplements are not under the same constraint as medication.
Yes.
Medications must prove bioavailability. So when you take a medication that's in a capsule or a tablet form, it's already been tested for absorbability by loads of research. But the supplement companies don't have to prove that. So if you take a tablet, first off, the ingredients, unless you really know about it, you don't know how absorbable they are. Plus, they're put into a tablet that's formed, and you don't even know if you can break it all down. Picture having any kind of compromised gut, which most people with chronic illness have. They're not going to break it down, much less absorb it.
Oh,
But let's say
wow.
you can break it down. It's got to go through the stomach lining, go through the liver a couple of times, get released into circulation, into the serum, and then somehow get into the cells. A lot of choke points.
Yeah.
So if you can't get it into the cells, what's going to happen? You're not going to get the benefit of it. So there's a hierarchy of absorption. The hierarchy is intravenous, but that's very expensive. Liposomal, which we're about to explain.
Oh,
Liquid, powder, capsule, tablet. I use transdermal when the person cannot put anything into their stomach.
okay.
But there's other ways of doing that too.
Okay.
The advent of liposomal products means that liposomes are these little circles that you, if you will, they stuff in vitamins and minerals, and it goes directly into your cells. Okay, it goes through your biggest membrane directly into your cells. I prove that by doing live blood cell analysis. I teach that also. So I would look at somebody's blood, and let's say it's all clumped up and stuff. And then I would give them a liquid liposomal vitamin, a particular one that was very powerful. And literally 5 minutes later, 5 o'clock, I would take another sample, and you would see all kinds of changes.
Wow.
Cause got into the cells, and then whatever changes happened, I can evaluate and say, okay, this is a very toxic cell, or it's a toxic environment. I can usually see on the slide what's causing it, parasites, yeast, that kind of stuff.
Oh, interesting.
But the reality is that liposomal vitamins give you what you're looking for. Now, at first, it was super expensive, liquid, and it was super expensive. I know the scientist who created a product called Protovite, which is the strongest liposomal product on the market, also one of the most expensive. He also created the process of taking the liquid and making it into a dry liposome, which I tested also and had the same result.
Oh,
He's since passed, and he's a great man, Bill Downs. He's an absolutely great man, a loving man. You've never met a man who really cared, and the world is lesser for not having him. But being who he is, he didn't hold it proprietary. He let it out. I forget what that's
oh,
called.
wow.
Other companies picked it up, and now you can get liposomal vitamins in capsules. Just go to Amazon, put liposomal multivitamin.
And are there certain brands that are better than others, though?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So liposomal vitamins are now based on what this doctor created because he allowed it to be shared.
Now the price obviously has gone down, and you can get the Protovite from Victory Nutrition International, but it's fairly expensive. Yes, it's the most powerful on the market. And sometimes I'll use that with my patients because they need the absolute best for the first couple of months. But most people say, what should I take? Tell them go to Amazon, look up liposomal multivitamin.
Yep.
Don't be fooled by men's, women's, universal. They're all the same. That's a marketing thing, by the way. But the forms of the vitamins, in other words, what the vitamins are, like calcium gluconate or magnesium glycinate or in an ionic form, you're going to absorb. That's one big deal.
Could I just ask you a question? So you said multivitamin. Should we be taking a multi and specific singular ones? I've heard D3 and K2 you're supposed to take together. For the average kind of healthy person, is one liposomal multi enough, or should we be taking those individual type supplements also?
I have found over my career that the more somebody has to take, the less compliant they are. Not because they don't want
That's a good point.
but let's face it, we have busy lives. Do I have patients who I say, listen, I want you to take all this stuff and divide it into blah, 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 and they have it up on a, but think about a mom who's got 3 young children. And moms, they take care of themselves last.
Yeah.
If I work it out so they do something like add breakfast and dinner, make themselves healthier, they'll do it. Okay. Why? Because it's convenient and it's there. And if I can make it effective, I get compliance because this is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Anybody will do anything for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They'll do anything. But after that, they start shedding things because their family comes first. This is also for busy professionals. You know, I had a patient who was everywhere. I said, where are you? Same place every day. Oh, at my desk at lunch. How does she go over vitamins at lunch? My friends would say she's only going to absorb some of it. I said, no. I said, if she absorbs 80% of it, isn't that better than 0?
Yeah. So people that are busy, like you just described, are you saying that you're just telling them to take the multi twice a day or more than that?
That's where I start.
That's where you start.
Most people, most of those vitamins are 2 capsules a day.
Oh, so most of the multis are.
Yeah. If they're pretty bereft, I'll have 2 capsules at breakfast and 2 capsules at dinner.
Gotcha.
You're not going to overdo it because let me tell you something, the body's going to absorb what it wants, what it needs.
Yeah. And then excrete what it doesn't.
Exactly. Okay. Even the fat soluble vitamins, there's no possibility of hypervitaminosis with those guys. You're not going to have hypervitaminosis A unless you're eating polar bear liver. Okay. Unless you're a little kid, that's where you have the highest concentration.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you have vitamin A liquid and the baby swallows it all. And even then, it's not going to be a big deal. Vitamin D is great most of the time. Get enough in the multivitamin in the proper ratio.
Okay.
And of course, it's becoming spring up here in the Northern Hemisphere. So you can get yourself out in the sun a little bit.
Right. Without the sunscreen for 15 to 20 minutes.
Exactly. And of course, people say you're not going to have enough surface areas. It's accumulative. You take a vitamin and you do that. Yeah, if you can walk around on a beach in a bikini for 20 minutes a day without your sunscreen on, it's your best bet. More surface area, right? But who has that opportunity unless you're on vacation? And then we get into the grounding and the forest bathing and so on. You say, guys,
ooh, yes, all those things I love.
Listen, you've got to be reasonable with yourself because otherwise you put yourself even under more stress.
Exactly. If you have all these must-dos.
Exactly. The stress is worse than the illness. The
Right.
cure can't be worse than the illness. So what do you really need to do? In our society, the reason we're struggling so much now is, and why people are suddenly sick, is our society. We have a very constant stimulation, toxic environment. When I was a kid, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, all right, on Sunday, there were 2 things open, church and the bakery. Everything else was closed. By the way, if you go to Poland now, that's the way it is.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I went to a very strict Catholic regimen because I was there at the time. Well, we went to go get something at the store, it was closed, which is fine, yeah. But what did that do? Made you stay home, made you rest, made you hang out with their kids. And of course, I'm Italian, so we had,
Food
early in the afternoon. Of course, the adults got together, they played penny ante poker. You sat next to them, they let you play a little bit. Or you hung out with your cousins.
Yeah.
And then you went home, you did your homework, and went to school the next day. But you had that time. Saturday was a lead up to that. Okay. What do we have now? For a more toxic environment, electromagnetic field, literally toxins, stuff in the atmosphere, contrails and so forth. We have all these constant stimulation, which is worse. More sedentary lifestyles.
And the screens, tons of screen time.
Absolutely. What this all adds up to is nervous system overload. And that means you're using your compensatory mechanisms, your adrenals and so forth, on a consistent basis. When you have to do that, there will be a point of decompensation. And that's when you start getting fatigue, anxiety, poor digestion, brain fog, hormonal imbalance. I talked about the neuroendoimmunology. What that means is that those systems have the receptors for each other's system. So they all have the receptors for neurotransmitters, for hormones, and for the biomarkers of the immune system. One system goes off, the other's going to go off at some point. I taught a class last year on the ultimate hormone complex. And my subject matter was, where do you look when you're doing everything right? The person's not getting better. You're treating hormones and they're not getting better. You better look at the other systems. Okay.
Yeah.
When it's chronic, it doesn't matter who came first, the chicken or the egg. By the way, I got the answer to that because the bird that laid it wasn't a chicken.
Oh, okay.
Think about it. The first chicken that was a chicken was a mutation from whatever the precursor bird was. That was more survivable. For party, by the way.
Thank you for solving that mystery that I've had ever since I was a kid.
Everybody has. It's just a fun thing to say.
Yeah.
It's like researchers. I go to their parties. They're like, I'm like, listen, every time you do research, you cut out all the variables. Yeah, we're supposed to. I said, I know that. Then you give me the information as if it's sacrosanct. No, I have to apply it as a clinician to somebody with innumerable variables. That's why I keep telling you that
It
we
doesn't fit.
utilize the information. It doesn't fit. They don't invite me to the parties anymore.
Aw, it's probably just as
okay.
well. You probably don't want to hang out with them. I'm just curious about the nervous system piece because I think that's huge. I'm curious what you recommend for people as far as nervous system regulation.
The real trick in what I do and what really should be done is looking at, we'll talk about holistic care and looking at a person holistically. What does that really mean? Does that mean I should take a dead chicken and swing it over your head, bring in crystals? I'm making a joke, I realize. Okay. Is looking at the whole person in any condition, whether it's nervous system. If you do one thing that treats the dysregulation, one of the reasons it might not work is because you're not looking at everything. Does that mean you have to go crazy? If you treat something without consideration of other stuff, it's probably not going to work. And if you're looking at the foundation of the body and say, I'm going to treat this by good diet, good air, good water.
Yeah.
Well, if it's gone too far, that's not going to work. Think about it for a moment. Let's talk about depression and serotonin. It's not
Sure.
Depression. I'm just going to hone it into that.
Okay.
What happens over time with chronic stress? And you use up the serotonin that's in the warehouses, and the production of serotonin is knocked down because you can't process your amino acids, your proteins, so that the body has enough tryptophan to create serotonin. Okay. By the time you have symptoms, those warehouses are nearly empty. That takes months to years, hence decompensation. If you try to fix that by just eating well, you haven't fixed the digestion. Can't give the body enough protein to fill the bucket. Once you do fill the buckets, let's say with some supplementation for a few months, then your diet, the water, everything else helps you maintain health.
But it doesn't restore it back to where it needs to be in order to maintain it.
Always remember that the body's constantly is balancing itself. Right?
Homeostasis, right?
Homeostasis. That's what creates homeostasis.
Yeah.
Neuroendocrinology is how you create homeostasis. That all works within the mitochondria, which is your energy producer.
Yeah.
If you don't have proper mitochondrial function and you're not producing enough energy, which is called ATP, what's the big word? Is adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
If I say something fast, like a big word, ignore it.
Okay.
Because
ATP is a lot easier to remember.
it is. Or just remember energy packets. It doesn't matter that glycolysis and the crabs and it doesn't matter because the system has to be optimized. And it isn't nearly as difficult. It's time consuming and you have to consider a lot of stuff. But the actual process of recreating homeostasis starts at the cellular level with consideration of the mitochondrial function, because if you don't have energy, you can't heal. Bottom line, can't heal.
I know one of the solutions that you've mentioned is the liposomal vitamins. Are there other things that people can do?
Absolutely. I'm going to share a couple of secrets with you. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Mind you, this is really basic, and a lot of people kind of benefit from it. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the thing. You want to get those vitamins and minerals into the cells. Okay. Sometimes people will like more minerals. So I usually suggest I can't pronounce this word, shallot, the humic and fulvic acid. But it's a resin, or you see it in liquids and stuff. It
Okay.
makes everything black, but it doesn't taste bad.
Oh,
Okay, that's a liquid, and it's a good supplement for multi-minerals because it's got this big bevy of all the minerals, because it comes from a rock called lignite.
we'll put this in the show notes. You can give me the link,
Sure. Okay.
and that way
No
people
problem.
can.
Now, you can't go wrong by treating leaky gut syndrome. Why is that? First, leaky gut syndrome is a reason for a lot of inflammation, because remember that your gut is right next to your immune system, because that's what protects you. If the barrier between the gut and the immune system is broken, which is very often true, those antigens, those bad guys that are there in the environment and or a product of a lack of digestion. So think about a protein, big long chain of amino acids. If you break it down to all of its amino acids, it'll get through, body uses it. But if you're not digesting it completely, you're breaking it down to short chain proteins, which are antigens. Okay.
Okay.
So we're the great creator of our own antigen. So what happens is that keeps happening. We have these antigen antibody reactions that create inflammation. Chronic inflammation is the basis of almost every disease. Decrease that, and you're decreasing the burden on the body. You can't go wrong by treating leaky gut. Let me talk about the elephant in the room before I tell you how to treat it. Okay? The elephant is, but the test I don't have leaky gut. My doctor says I don't have leaky gut. Without becoming very Sicilian about it, okay, let me tell you why you can treat leaky gut, and you should treat it all the time.
Even if you haven't been diagnosed with it.
Exactly. Because the treatment for leaky gut is very benign. We're talking about digestive enzymes, creating mucus layer, some butyrate, some probiotics, and so forth. I'll explain in a second.
Okay.
But if you don't have leaky gut and I treat it, am I hurting?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. It's probably stuff you need anyway, but literally, I'm not hurting you. But if you have leaky gut and I don't, am I hurting you?
Yes.
Because the inflammation will continue. So how do we fix that? You want to digest your foods better. So there's a bevy of digestive enzymes out there, from digestive bitters to animal-based enzymes, plant-based enzymes. Pick one and look for the words amylase, protease, lipase.
Oh, okay.
Which means it breaks down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, there are animal-based ones like pancreatin, betaine hydrochloride, oxbile, and there's a whole mess of plant enzymes. There's some of them that combine the two. Pick out one, try it out. But here's the trick. Take a capsule with each meal, so you break down your foods better.
Oh, okay.
Take it either before the meal or in the middle. If you take it after the meal and you've got a little bit of opening in the sphincter between the esophagus and the stomach, it may bubble up and make it burning.
Oh.
You don't have to take betaine hydrochloride like crazy. Start with that. Now, we talk about the mucus layer. The mucus layer is made from fiber. Now you know it as prebiotic, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll send you if you like, a chart that I just did
Sure.
on how to make different decisions about your fiber to use, because some people react poorly to it. I found that the basic fiber that is good for almost everybody, because it's the least reactive, is acai powder.
Oh, acai? Is that the berry?
That's the guy.
Oh,
I
okay.
know, but it's a powder also.
Okay.
Okay.
But it comes from the acai berry.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
And I'll show you the chart, but that's the one that had the least reactive. And you can get that in a powder. You put 1 or 2 teaspoons in water. It has no taste really.
Okay.
Mix it up and you drink it. That helps create the mucus layer in the gut. It literally turns into mucus.
So that's a prebiotic.
They're all prebiotics.
They're all
The reason
prebiotics.
they're called
Okay.
prebiotics is because the mucus layer is where your microbiome live. Okay. That's what they eat. That's where they perform their actions. One of the major benefits of a mucus layer is that when those antigens come in, they get trapped there.
Oh.
Then a certain immunoglobulin comes over and hog-ties it. Okay. So if they get trapped there, they're not getting in, right? So sometimes you can't change the amount of antigens in the atmosphere or what you're taking in from getting into your body. Literally simple as that. And that's why people laugh at me.
Wow,
They can
that's
try.
okay. So acai berry before you eat
It
the
doesn't matter
powder
the time.
doesn't matter, even after you've
Doesn't,
eaten.
doesn't matter.
Okay, so
But
you're
sometimes
basically building up the mucus layer
yes,
with that. We've talked about the minerals, the vitamins. What am I forgetting as far as the nervous? Oh, the protease, amylase,
the enzymes. So
digestive enzymes.
vitamin
Okay.
and optionally is the minerals, digestive enzymes. I was just giving some parameters of that.
Okay.
You want to recreate a mucus layer. Now you want to help the cells heal. There's two ways that you can do that. You can use glutamine, which most people use, okay, at around, I think, 4 to 7 grams a day. And again,
Okay.
it doesn't matter what time you take these things. But here's a caveat. If taking glutamine makes you nervous, makes you not feel good, stop.
Okay.
Because glutamine creates glutamate, which is an excitotoxin that gets
Oh,
converted to GABA, which is how you calm your brain. The enzyme that does that is called GAD, or glutamate decarboxylase. Okay, if that's not working very well, you're going to have an over amount of glutamate.
oh, so it won't be turning to GABA if your system isn't processing
Exactly.
it correctly.
But it does help the gut heal. But there's alternatives for that. So if that's true for you, butyrate is you can add that together or use it by itself.
Okay.
Butyrate helps the cells heal. The easiest way to take that is something called tributyrate,
Okay.
because it kind of spreads it out kind of along the whole gut. Some people like to take zinc carnosine to help the cells adhere to each other. And then there's always a discussion about probiotics. Sometimes just doing the prebiotics, which feeds the microbiome, what's necessary.
Oh,
If you're looking for a probiotic, here's the guidance I can give you. Look for a balance or a combination of the lactobacilli and the bifidobacteria. That's your basic
okay.
biome.
Okay.
I like myself the spore-based probiotics rather than the rest of the guys, because I
Hmm.
feel like they be better. You can pick one out. It's usually a benign thing. That stuff recreates the mucus layer, helps the cells heal, and provides for a microbiome, which prevents all that stuff from getting through the gut. What does that do? Brings inflammation down. This is without thinking about everything else. You do that, you're only helping yourself, because if you're still ill, chronic inflammation is absolutely a feature. Give the cells what they need to work. Okay. Make sure you treat leaky gut. You can also add in, if you wanted to, some sunflower lecithin to give your cell membranes what they need. Although if you're taking digestive enzymes, you're going to take those lipids that in your diet and turn that into what the body needs. If that helps, great. If it doesn't, it really got to look into it a little bit more, because there's
Yep.
lots of other stuff that the body may need in order to fix itself. But at the very basic level, if you want to help fix the cells and the mitochondria included, okay, the little basic program, bar none, is not going to hurt you ever, as far as I know. Anything can happen. Anything can cause anything. Okay, there's always going to be a couple of outliers out there that react to something. Okay, so one can't speak to that, because I do very individualized work, very long history, and I figure out, oh, okay, you took glutamine and you didn't feel good, we're not going to use that. Who follows a protocol says you have to take glutamine. Thanks.
So these are just basic recommendations, but it needs to be personalized for each person. I think what would be so great is if you could give me that list of things that we've just discussed, and I'll put that in the show notes so people see
Sure.
the kind of step by step. That would be awesome.
I'll make an image that.
Oh, sweet.
I like making images these days for my patients, because I finally learned how to use AI to do that. I give it to AI and say, make an image out of them. It really works out well too, because if I give them an explanation, they lose it. They're not stupid. It's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you put it into an image, it makes it a little bit easier to navigate. Anything that increases compliance, I'm into. But remember that all chronic illnesses have to do with
Root
what has
causes.
to be investigated. It's something called cell danger response. What damages the cell are toxins, microbes, and all psychological, emotional, and spiritual traumas.
Yes.
This was proven by Dr. Robert Navio, MD, PhD, in a paper he wrote in 2013 about the cell danger response, which is how your cells respond to attack. He quantified that stuff, which means I used to be able to go back to my medical doctor friends and say, it's all in their heads. Yeah. And this is how it can actually hurt. There's been studies showing that depression and anger can cause inflammation by increasing pro-inflammatory cytokines again.
So that whole idea of all in the head, which was always very dismissive, is actually being interpreted in a different way.
It's true. As we spoke of before, I know we don't try to get into it. The spike protein from COVID in the pandemic been a major toxin and has significant damage to the mitochondria, which
Yeah.
has allowed things to happen that don't usually happen in younger people. And I just wrote a paper on how to treat that successfully with all the scientific references. I hate to be cynical, but I am going to say that one of the things that's happening now, and everybody should understand this, is that they're allowing long COVID to become the next chronic illness that cannot be cured, but has to be managed. In other words, they'd rather manage the results. I can go into tons.
Yeah, we need another show about this topic because I think this is a very long and involved one that is important for people to know.
It's really important for you to know. You want to know empirically if this is an issue. Just think about it for a little while. If you were having any illness and during the pandemic, regardless of whether you got the immunizations, COVID itself, or from shedding, got worse, but never came back to where you were, that's the spike protein. If you weren't ill and you became ill and you never got back to who you were completely, that's the influence of the spike. And yes, there is testing.
I would definitely love to have you come back. I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information in this first one, but this has been absolutely eye-opening in many ways and so helpful.
My pleasure. What I want people to do is realize that they are not broken. Okay? That when they're told that something is chronic, it doesn't mean permanent. Okay?
Yeah.
That if you've had everything done here, there, and everywhere, and you're still being told there's nothing can be done, time to step back with a proper practitioner or by yourself and say, Jay, maybe something hasn't been looked at. Okay? What I wanted to do today, which I believe we've successfully done, is show people that there are mechanisms that have not been looked at or been looked at and not been considered as being significant, okay, that can be a life changer or a game changer for you, okay? I've seen this happen all the time. My entire practice is complex illnesses that have gotten better elsewhere, okay? And the glitch that I usually see is more stuff, but that's the basis of what I usually see. That's why the little hint about a program like that, so you can start treating yourself and you start feeling a little bit better, you know you're heading in the right direction. But if you hit a plateau, you know there's more to do.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.